Whereas
Right.
New York, people are just mind your fucking business on
Yeah,
both
right.
ends. Like we're filming, we're mind your business, and then we're in their space. We're like, excuse me, can you? They're like, mind your business. What's this? New York City, if nothing else, if people think the movie is garbage and they get one thing out of it, I would love it to be, oh, it's possible to go shoot in New York City.
Good day, filmmaker Jeffrey Scotti Schroeder of the indie hit or something. How are you today?
I'm good, man. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm great. You can say it's an indie hit now, right? Because it's been extended at Quad Cinemas, I think, through September 4th. That's really cool.
That is cool. I think the indie hit is probably on a sort of sliding scale. But listen, to me, it's a hit if more people get to see it.
It's just, I can't wait to talk with you about it because there are so many questions that I have that I think will help indie filmmakers be like, oh, wow, is that something I can do? I think that's really something that a lot of people can take away from that. But I'm curious, first, how did you get started? What's your origin story?
Origin story, the earliest version is like the skating skate filmer, Spike
Interesting.
Jones to music video to filmmaking pipeline kind of thing. I grew up in the 90s and yeah, I was the guy with
Camera.
the camera that was purchased for our family like as a Christmas present and no one else used it. So I was filming skating.
And then what brought you to doing, say, narrative projects? Did you always have an interest in that? Or was it just, okay, I'm going to do this to start? You've done some music videos, some brand work. Is that to keep a roof over your head? Is there a passion there? And then what drew you to making a film?
Yeah, the sort of truncated version is my first job out of college is I worked at the mailroom at William Morris. Yeah, if people are in the know, that's a very loaded position to hold, if you can call it that.
A thing? Is that still a thing, Jeffrey, that people
There's
do that?
definitely still, yeah, there's definitely a mailroom at every agency, and the idea is to get out of the mailroom as soon as possible and
Of
get
course.
become an assistant to an agent. And my first agent I worked for was Jeff Gorin. He was a lit agent at the time. He repped Jason Reitman, Timur Bekmambetov, and then he had just signed Nick Reffin while I was on his desk. So I became friendly
Oh,
with
cool.
Nick. This is obviously years ago. So then after that, I had signed a director, and he said to me when I was still an assistant, "Hey, I want you to come produce for me." And I said, "That sounds cool, but I don't know how to do that." And he was like, "Don't worry about it. It's fucking easy." So he moved me out to Jackson Hole, Wyoming. I cut my teeth as a producer doing action sports stuff. And then after that, I found my way back to LA. And then I was like, where I really need to be is New York because
Yeah.
I felt like it's where I always wanted to live. And then ever since then, freelance producing for the most part to keep the roof over the head, as it were. And I always had my eye on the directing stuff. But I think I was just so thrilled to not be broke for the first time that I was like, this feels nice to not have negative in my bank account and be screaming at bank tellers about removing overdraft
Overdrive.
fees and parking tickets that would ruin your financially destroy you. And so I did that for a number of years. I've been taking still photos my entire life. And then, yeah, I transitioned to, I tried to split up my time with the money making venture, which is producing commercials and stuff. And then
Right.
just was intentional about using some of my time out of the year to also pursue directing efforts.
That's amazing. So before we leave the agent talk, what makes a great agent? Were you able to establish that when working in the mailroom of what made a great agent versus not a good one?
That is a tricky question because the hierarchy of being the assistant to the agent and
Right.
you're not treated in the best way. However, Jeff, who I worked for, treated me well, and then moved on to Rob Carlson, who at the time repped Michael Bay, amongst other people. And I got lucky. I think there was the horror stories were
Right.
happening around me. But to answer your question, I think both of them were excellent agents. And to me, after my time there, it came down to a couple of simple things, which was The good agents would have a really hard and fast rule that would return everybody's call at least the same day, get through their
Yeah.
whole call sheet, which is this is all agency lingo. They're getting 300 calls a day and getting back to people even though you're busy. And then the other thing is both Jeff and Rob, they were both just really honest and didn't really do the agenty thing, which I think is less the case with literary agents. But yeah, and then also just they just seem like genuinely good guys, and I think that comes off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell what people really mean when, everything is flattery, and it's hard to tell, is this actual truth or is it just somebody saying that to me just because they want X, Y, or Z from me?
Yeah, if you're worrying about that and the agents are just flattering you, it means that you're probably making them a ton of money. So I haven't experienced that yet.
Well, that's a perfect segue to or something, which, like we've said, is doing really well. I think you've had a couple of Q&As. They've looked like they've been, if not sold out, very full. That must be a very satisfying feeling. When someone sits down to watch or something, what should they expect to see?
I tell everybody, and I'm not going to be able to tell everyone who sits down to watch it, but I say if you like your classic New York City walk and talk film,
Yeah,
and if you don't mind two people talking the entire movie, and that's pretty much the crux of it in the most simple terms, then you'll like it. If you don't like that type of movie, you're not going to like this film, which is completely fine. We all have our preferences. I
exactly.
personally love this is a
I do
format I
too.
love. And also, when you do it this way, it also strips away a lot of the fanciness or like the special
Pretension.
effects or just like the stuff that can distract you from the story and the dialogue. Whereas this
Exactly.
is very bare in a good way. The script has to be excellent because you don't have anything else to distract you. So in that case, I think for this type of film, I think we executed that pretty well.
Yeah, and I agree. It was written by 2 comic legends, Mary Neely, Kareem Rahma. How did you wind up attached to the film, and were there other variations of it? If we went back and talked about it a year, 2 years ago, would it look like something different, or was it pretty much like you said, came with an excellent script, and that talent found its way onto the screen?
Yeah, the me getting involved, we could go all the way back to that, which is an interesting path. Kareem, we he and I shared a mutual friend named Ben Carey, who's a legendary DP. He's the number one music video and commercial guy in the world right now. And I've been encouraging him to do features as soon as possible, but he's having a good time with the commercials and music videos and getting paid well for it. But I guess Kareem had called him and said, "Hey, who do you know that could help me make a feature film? Mary and I wrote this. Who should I call?" And I guess Ben mentioned myself and one other person. And then I don't know the timeline after that, but then Kareem called me and Kareem and he introduced himself and we talked for about 45 minutes.
That's
He
awesome.
told me all about the script. And this is also before Subway takes their Keep the Meter running. But Kareem was just super enthusiastic and I loved his sort of candor and his forwardness. He was, listen, I don't know the first thing about producing a feature film. Can
That's
you help
awesome.
me? And I
Yeah,
said, yeah, I can do this. And so the initial call was much more, hey, can you be the producer for this? And then I read the script and I called them back as soon as I read it twice in a row. And I was just really impressed by the script. And, starting in a mailroom, I've read 1,000 plus scripts. Maybe not that many. Close. It has to be close to
but yeah.
like a lot because we had to do script coverage and not get paid for it, which is a whole nother thing. I don't know if that still happens. And so I called him back and I said, I would love to make this happen for you. It was definitely right up my alley as far as an indie film, how ambitious it was. And I wanted to do the sort of idealized version of New York indie film in my mind, anyways, which is less resources, just making it happen. And then later on down the road, they were toying with various directors. And then I forget if it was Mary or Kareem, but I guess they'd seen some of my directing work and my commercial stuff at the time because I didn't really have any narrative stuff. And Kareem was, why don't you just direct it? And I was, let me think
Oh,
on
yeah.
that. Because it's a big undertaking. I
Right.
was certain that I could produce it. I had done other feature films producing. And so I took a day and I called them and said, "Yeah, let's do this."
That's such a cool story. So, it was filmed over 6 days, ultra low budget on the subways, I imagine you didn't worry. Did you think about the permit process? Was that sort of, "No, we're not gonna be doing that kind of stuff, we're just gonna put 6 days, get this done," type of thing?
Yeah, my approach was this. I've done plenty of commercials and music videos, some literally 0 budget, some 5 grand, some 10 grand. I've done commercials that were $1,000,000. Shooting in
That's
New
a
York City
crazy
is
range.
yeah, when you're in the commercial space, you'll have the whole range, and I like to keep myself honest. If I'm producing, I still like doing the smaller stuff. But I think there's a misconception that shooting in New York is hard, and while you can't just go at it blind, as long as you know the rules and parameters, is actually a really friendly city to shoot. And I had 10 years of producing experience and a number of years of directing in New York City. And so I've encountered every situation, and I know where you can reliably shoot without a permit. I know the exact places you absolutely cannot shoot without a permit. And I had the producer hat in mind for sure when we were coming up with the schedule and really dialing in locations. And I'll tell you, I was, yeah, we don't need any permits at all except for Central Park. I think a lot of people were nervous about the subway stuff. And the reality is, you'll get more curiosity even from cops than you will, where's your permit? Especially if you know the rules. And basically, it's you can pretty much be anywhere with any type of camera. You just can't stop the flow of foot traffic or traffic. And you can't set up lights, can't set up stands. Generally speaking, you're not supposed to be on a tripod. If you're handheld, you can actually legally be most places. The MTA is different. However, if you keep it small, they people just don't bother you. And we had 18 pages on the subway. We ended up shooting that first. That was the only thing that I was a little nervous about. And we ended up doing it without any issue whatsoever.
And you don't have to
So
worry about releases. I'm trying to remember if I saw faces of anyone else. I don't remember a lot of other faces. Is that something that's concerning if you're on a train, you're shooting like this, you get random people that may or may not wanna be in the film?
yeah, that's something that we always consider checking the frame on both A and B
Yeah,
cams. However, we took that into consideration when framing and setting up our shots.
right.
So if you look back at the subway stuff, we intentionally picked the back car. And we
Yeah.
had 15 crew members, including Mary and Kareem. And if someone was sitting there, we were just, hey, do you mind just moving to that seat? So we're always shooting back towards the back end of the train. So I think it's just little things like that, just knowing how to accomplish things without it getting in the way of your creative endeavor.
Yeah, as I was asking you the question, I was thinking about the film, and I don't remember seeing any faces, so that's a really great way of framing it. So, if say you're graduating from NYU, would your or any sort of New York City film school, would your experience there give you those tips? Hopefully, you have been doing films like this in the city, and hopefully, you've learned those things. Or is it still, if you're talking with somebody who's just graduating film school, maybe even in LA, somewhere else, is it that important to have that New York City producer, like you said, that 10 years experience to be able to embark on a project like this?
I never went to film school, so I can't
Yeah,
necessarily speak coming out of it. I don't know how in the weeds they get on like the actual production stuff.
right,
Unclear.
exactly.
I know they go out and shoot films and whatnot, but I would say yes. I think that having somebody, at least one person who knows the lay of the land, will allow you to shoot without much friction.
Yeah,
I just know
exactly.
for a fact we cannot ever shoot at Domino Park. It's privately owned. They have a guy with a golf cart that walks around, and if they see anybody filming, they're, "Where's your permit?" It's $10,000. And
That's
then
the
this,
only thing that guy he's security,
yeah,
I
yeah,
guess?
and that's the same with Brooklyn Bridge Park. It's privately owned. There's a guy there. I had permits for the adjacent road for a big Coach handbag commercial, and that guy showed up, and we even had a cop with us, and the guy was screaming at the cop, and it's no, this is the line, like this. So it's just like those things. And
Right.
like a lot of it's common sense. There's certainly not a rule book. However, if you have at least a single person on set, okay, to address your question more directly, which is let's say I just graduated NYU Film School. I want to go do this film. I would say 100% go do it. But get one person that can at least
No.
consult with you. Not necessarily like you don't have to spend a bunch of money to get a big producer, but or you just get a producer that's passionate. We all knew that we weren't making much money at all on
Right.
this feature. And if the script is good enough and people understand the vision, then they'll be down. The other thing I learned is you should always shoot your shot with bigger crew members or even talent. We were thinking about Guzman for the role of Uptown Mike, and I had produced a movie that he was in, and I reached out to him, and he was busy. But the very next one down the list, which is pretty much equal, we were just calling people, was David Zayas, who was in Dexter in the latest season 2, and I think he was in The Bear, and his wife was
Yeah.
in The Bear, and he's a legendary theater actor. And I just found his manager's email address and I sent the script and I said, "Hey, sorry for the cold email. David is absolutely perfect for this. Here's the script. Let me know if you agree." And then I think I got a response within 45 minutes, and I just read the script. This is exactly what we're looking for.
That's
David just came off of a Broadway show. He has downtime. He can do this. So a lot of things have to align. The other thing that I will always harp on is if the script is great, that's your best bet. If the
yeah.
script is just okay, this I learned this with music videos. If the song sucks, it doesn't matter how much money you have, what
What
talent
shots
you
you
have,
take, yeah.
doesn't it just doesn't matter because no one will listen to it, no one will watch it. Similarly, if a script sucks, you there's nothing really you can do to make that film good. And in this case, it was the exact opposite. I read the script and I was like, this is really good. And so when I was calling all my friends to say, hey, do you want to do this ultra low budget feature? They were like, what's the rate? And I told them, like, nothing. And I was like, listen, we're not doing anything. It's the end of December. I know you're not working because I'm not working either. Read this. If you like it, do this thing with me. If you
Yeah.
do not like the script, do not do it. And I think I got 90% of the crew signed on, and I had gave that same speech to all them. So the best advice for an NYU student, this very long answer I'm realizing now, is definitely go and shoot the thing, but also just do it. You know what I mean? Have a trusted person, and also just make sure the most important thing, you have nothing without a really strong script.
I love that answer, and I love that it also brings up the confidence that you had, right? Like, if you were even somewhat shy about doing it, "I don't know, I haven't done a feature yet," you could have almost talked yourself out of the job, I imagine.
Yeah, this is advice I give to crew members. This is more commercial type people because I've mentored a bunch of people in the commercial space. I ask a PA if I think they're smart and they're hardworking and have a good attitude. I'm like, what department do you want to land in? They'll say, oh, I want to be a production designer, and I'm like, then do it.
Yeah,
I think that there is definitely a little bit of a gatekeepy like feeling because people feel like a maybe they think their job is super special, and b there's some scarcity to the amount of jobs.
right.
And so for that reason, it's like everyone being, oh no, you can't do that job. You can't be a camera AC. You can't be a gaffer. I My first production job, I did every department. If you care enough about it, you want to do it, just you have to say yes. You got to say yes to those jobs if they come your way, and then also create those jobs for yourself, whether it be just jumping on friends, small, no budget music videos or whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah,
That's incredible, Jeffrey. So this film I've seen in New York City blogs. It's a quintessential New York film. You've mentioned it takes you back 1970s with sort of the walk and talk and shoot type of films. I love that. Do you see that as a viable model? I feel you could do that in New York. You could do that in Los Angeles. All these cities that have a real strong vibe. You could make films like this. And I don't feel there are a ton of them. So do you think there's a market for more of these types of films?
I'll answer that in two ways. One, it already happened about 10, 15 years ago with the mumblecore movement. And
Right.
so the Joe Swanberg type films, even Greta Gerwig, those sorts of films early on, that's exactly what they were.
Yeah.
We are just going to write great scripts and go shoot them with very little
Yeah.
money. There's a really excellent South by Southwest panel discussion with Joe Swanberg where he discusses exactly this. And it's an hour long. And I think nearly all of our crew, I don't know if they all watched it or not, but we sent it to everyone and said, hey, this is what we're going after. Watch this. And Joe Swanberg talks about doing this and doing it for very little money. And that was really encouraging for us. So that the mumblecore movement, it was a flash in the pan a little bit. It was still movies hold up to me, but I think we got a little fatigued because we got a lot of them. And
Right.
then that sort of went away. So to answer your next question, I think we're ready for more of these films. I think they're
Yeah.
completely feasible. I will say, I will disagree with one thing you said, which is I don't think these films are possible in Los Angeles. It's just,
Interesting.
it is really like Los Angeles is not a city that champions indie filmmaking whatsoever. I can't name, this is why don't get me started topic, by the way,
I love
but
those. I love those.
I'll try to keep my cool. But in Los Angeles, it's just not a city that's set up to champion indie filmmaking. You shoot on the street, and every storefront they come out with their hand out, being like, "Give me $1,000, or I'll call the unions." And you're selling baked goods. How do you know about unions? I'm sure your croissants are good, but what do you have to do with us filming outside? Whereas
Right.
New York, people are just mind your fucking business on
Yeah,
both
right.
ends. Like we're filming, we're mind your business, and then we're in their space. We're like, excuse me, can you? They're like, mind your business. What's this? New York City, if nothing else, if people think the movie is garbage and they get one thing out of it, I would love it to be, oh, it's possible to go shoot in New York City because I just want to see more indie films come out of this place. And it's legal to do it if you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And in LA, it's quite literally not possible. I've shot a lot in LA. I've done a ton of commercials, less narrative work because it's not possible there. I always challenge people when they start to disagree. I'm like, name the last indie film that was set in Los Angeles. I don't know if I still haven't found somebody to answer that.
Yeah, I don't have any idea. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great of the similar to this where you're showing the city itself and co people interacting with the city. I can't think of one.
Yeah.
Great point.
It's not to say I wouldn't like to see it. I just don't
I would like yeah, no, exactly.
from a logistical standpoint, I don't think it's possible. And that's the whole other layer is some of the unions and there's a greed element. It's the same reason that a lot of features don't shoot in LA anymore. It's just too
Yeah,
cost prohibitive. You take $1 million budget and there's 60% of it goes to the union. So your $1 million becomes 400K. Don't quote me on this. I'm not
yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
forensic accountant, but this is the broad strokes of it. So yeah, I'm happy to just stay in New York and continue doing my thing here.
Is the infrastructure in New York set up for an increase of these films? The idea of filming an ultra low budget film, getting it into theaters like quad cinemas, and then hopefully going you might have a plan for streaming, something like that. Is there a profitable path there, say it's just in New York City, to make these kind of films, do you think, right now?
Oh no. I think that nobody's really making money on indie films. Like I don't know what Brady if he said he didn't make any money on The Brutalist.
Oh, right.
Which I believe it.
Yeah.
I believe that. Some people, what do you mean you didn't make any money? I believe that because there's not so much, it's not you get things for cheaper if you do the indie route,
No.
and you can here and there, but profitability is not, I wouldn't lead with that as a selling point. I think for me, anyways, I think this is a good stepping stone for my next
Yeah.
feature. And
Okay.
I'm happy. And I knew up front, no one's going to make any money on this. The very best we can do is break even and then get our initial investors paid back. And if that happens, that's a huge win for me
Right.
because you're thanking the people whom took a shot on you in the first place. So it remains to be seen. I don't know the numbers. I'm not super involved with that and distribution and whatnot. But I am still super encouraging of people to do it in general. I'm not saying you have to be a starving artist your whole life.
Right.
However, if you're leading with the idea of profitability, it it might not come to fruition. We truly, all of us, were like, this is a indie film effort. When the investors invested in it for various reasons, we were very upfront with everybody who invested. I was less involved in the raising of the money, so I couldn't
Okay.
completely speak to that. But yeah, that's my general stance.
I think that has to be a part of why people don't end up making a second feature. So one of the things that has really interested me over the past few months is going back and looking at Oscar winners of even best short, best whatever. And they often you look at their IMDb, no projects, nothing going on, and you think they've got the most relevant award in the industry, and still they weren't able to get projects made. And I think it has to come back down to probably investors. They may have made a film, a bunch of people got burned on it, and then they weren't able to draw the same sort of investors for that second film. I think that's an underrated thing of making sure everybody at least breaks even on who paid in, or at least, if not breaks even, understands like what they were in for. If you know you're not going to make any money back, it's a little different than if somebody sends you a PowerPoint or a deck being like, you're going to make 10% or whatever it is.
Yeah, yeah. Listen, I am less interested in the numbers. I know there's a
Yeah.
reality to it, but I think there's a world in which in New York we can cultivate a space in which we make it even easier for people to shoot, or if they don't know it's easy, then they're educated on it. It's funny enough. So I live in the East Village, and our councilman for District 41, I think it is, which is Lower East Side, Alphabet City, East Village, is his name is Harvey Epstein, which is not a great name for a politician, but he's a really good dude. He has the seat now, and
Yeah.
he reached out to me to say, "Hey, I'm truly interested in figuring out how to cultivate the indie film scene in our neighborhood, but also New York wide." And so I met with him a couple times. We had Zoom calls and laid out a path. And he has an operating budget, and he's been in. And then I found out he literally lives on my street on East Fourth,
Love that.
which is just random coincidence. And he's been here for 20, 30 years, and he is really passionate. He's seen when there was the cultural boom in this neighborhood. It's epic. East Village is so much has happened here between the beatnik poets and punk and tons of art from Basquiat to Allen Ginsberg, all these people. This is a really fertile area, and I think he's seeing it and he's missing it. And he's what's changed, and so myself and a friend of mine, Jeff Alper, we put our heads together and laid out how he could actually help. And so I think these things take time with bureaucracy, but we're
Yeah.
hoping that some of these things that we're talking about will be put into action his next year, because it takes that long to get stuff to actually happen
Do you
politically.
feel Yeah, absolutely. Do you feel a film or something would be something that New York City would embrace? I feel like the challenge with that though is that they want to make it into a love letter to New York City. And I would argue this is, but you could also argue you watching this that, it goes some places that may not make the city look the best. So do you think that's a challenge of anytime working with government, they want a sort of picture perfect tourist ready type of film?
I would disagree with that, actually. I think there's a lot of films based in New York that don't paint it in a great light. And if it's good enough, people will not pay attention to something that, like, there's a lot of classic New York films that are crime laden, and
Right. The
there's a
mob, whatever.
yeah, the mob movies, and what's the Scorsese After Dark, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of classic movies set here. So I don't. I think New York and like the content of it. If it's a great movie, it's a great movie. The subject matter could be super dark. However, I would be like Wolf of Wall Street. You still get to see, you get the energy of New York.
Right.
And even with the mob movies, it's not the greatest subject matter for PR purposes. However,
Right.
New York is definitely part of the character of it. I also think it's just a part of the fabric of the city. And I think people are able to distinguish this is a film versus, or it doesn't have to be a tourist film
Yeah.
to be a successful in that way.
That's amazing. I love New York so much. We could talk probably for another hour or 2 on how fantastic, especially that neighborhood in East Village. This over here is the Bowery Hotel. I got a little drawing there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I love New York. What's next for you, Jeffrey? Do you have plans on over the next year or 2 of what if somebody loves this and be, man, I want another film. I want to watch another film from Jeff. What would you tell them?
So I just finished writing my first feature film, which I'll direct. First
Awesome.
one that I would actually want to direct. I've written plenty of things. That one, I just when I had very little restraint because I just wanted to make it the best script it could be. And
Yeah,
this is set partly in New York and also
of
on
course.
a super yacht in Dubai. So that will have to be my third film because it's too expensive. But that's a crime caper heist type film. But the next one that I'm working on right now, I'm in the middle of is it's a film roughly based on kids who are surfers that live in a favela in Rio.
Oh, man.
Um, I've been doing a photo series in Rio since 2019, and I think we're due for an updated City of God type vibe. And so
Hell yeah.
I've shot a lot. It'll be on 16 millimeter, and I've just shot the opening scene this past winter, and so that'll be my next one.
Are you a big proponent of film? Do you imagine utilizing film for the majority of your feature narrative projects?
Yeah, I think it fits the aesthetic. I don't think it's not necessary. Mm, I think if people just do it to do it, there's instances where it's not necessary. However,
Right.
it is in line with the types of films that I like and I want to make. Obviously, we toyed with the idea of shooting or something on film because of the feels New York. That dream quickly died once we took a look at the numbers. But yeah, especially with this next feature, I'm shooting it on location in Rio in this favela called PPG, and the money, the it's 6 to 1, so $300,000 is worth like 1.5 there. So I'm absolutely gonna take that opportunity to shoot the whole thing on 16.
And I'm sure I feel like I already know the answer to this question, but obviously the whole film debate over shorts versus features, a lot of people put out this idea of just make that ultra low budget feature. And I feel like you would agree with that advice of imagine like you wouldn't have the same career progression from this feature if you had made a short.
Yeah, this is in my number second in line of don't get me started. 100% save your money and you just got to make the feature.
Yeah.
There are instances that shorts do really well for people, but earlier in the interview you also just said there's people who have Oscars in the short category.
That
And so I love festivals, and it gives an opportunity for people to participate with the short films. However, I recently worked on, consulted as an EP on a short film, and the budget was very large. It was twice that of, it was large. It was a large budget for a short, right?
wow.
And it was 5 or 6 days. And it is just the same amount of stress as shooting just from an emotional level. It's the same amount of energy burn and stress as shooting the feature that I shot. So I would encourage everybody, even if you say, "Oh, I'm not ready for it," you just got to do it because
Yeah.
once you do the short, you can get caught in that sort of cycle. And then the short route too; those take just as long. Like submitting shorts and submitting
Editing.
features,
Yeah.
it's just the cycle of just save your money, save your time, and if it takes you 6 more months to tackle a 6 7 day feature, I would say 100 out of 100 times that's the route to go.
Did I miss the third? I've missed the third thing of don't get me started. Is it film related, Jeffrey?
Oh no, the second one, I only had two.
The okay, all right.
Yeah,
Right.
the second is shoot the feature and save the headache and the energy and the personal angst and just shoot the feature.
I'm glad to have hit both of them. So, indie film podcast, love hyping other people's projects. I'm really curious about your answer to this because it sounds like you've been exposed to different peers who work in music videos, who work in a variety of different industries. Is there a film or filmmaker that you wish more people knew about?
I think yes. So there's a DP. His name is Sean Price Williams. He was the DP for the Safdie brothers for Heaven Knows What and Good Time, and he's one of my favorite DPs there is. But he also has started directing, and he did a small freaky little film called The Sweet East, and
I love that.
it's so good. And that's
Yeah.
also, I've worked with him a handful of times, and he just has the New York mentality. And so I just want to see more films from him because that one definitely had the energy of this is New York City feature. It felt like it was set in DC, Maryland, and other places, but that felt to me very New York coded as far as the approach and the look and the style.
I still remember how that ended and just the incredulity of just watching what they shot. It's just I love that film. That's a fantastic recommendation. Jeffrey Scotti Schroeder, the film is or something still playing when this airs. I'm going to air it on Friday. The film is still in cinemas. Go watch it. I think it's a quintessential New York experience. If you can take a date this weekend to it, it would be give you a lot to discuss. The film is really fantastic. You guys made something incredible. You should be celebrating that, and you should be celebrated for doing it and for putting New York. I mean, like we talked about, it doesn't necessarily have to be the Chamber of Commerce thing. People fall in love for New York from watching a film like that. Just the chance meetings, just all the things that you talk about in the film are quintessential. And of course, who wouldn't give up money to save a cat? So it's just
There you go.
so much, Jeffrey. That's amazing. Definitely go check it out. Thanks for joining me on today on the podcast. This has been phenomenal. And I look forward to hopefully chatting with you again soon when your second feature comes out.
Thanks so much. And just a reminder to anyone that goes and watches it, tell all your friends because that is word of mouth is definitely the only way since we have a $0 marketing budget. And this, if we sell out enough, then there's a good chance that we'll have a wider release. And then
Hell yeah.
also, I encourage everyone to write letterbox reviews too. There's 4 or 5 half stars. I don't care if like it or not. I still want to see them.